Hello, everyone. I am so excited. I am here today with the true crimes master, Shaun Attwood, and I have my special guest, Mack White, who a lot of you know is somebody that I have mentored since he was 19, and he's 31 now. And so I'm going to actually, though, turn it over to Shaun because a lot of you know Shaun, and Mack only has a little bit of time, and he's going to do a quick little interview with Mack to put on his channel. Turn it over to you.
So what was it like for you, Mack, growing up in Texas?
Besides the good barbecue and Southern hospitality, it was in the environment that I grew up in and in the households that I grew up in. It was really challenging, because I lived in a lot of different households. So I lived with my mom in the beginning, and then I got taken away from her. I lived in a foster home. Then my uncle's wife, and he was in prison at the time, got me out of the foster home. I lived with her for some years, then reconnected with my dad, lived with him and 20 of his other girlfriends. Just basically always just jumped from house to house, family to family type thing. That was kind of what I dealt with in Texas, like growing up.
So in terms of education then, if you're moving around a lot, was it hard to maintain any focus?
It was just hard to maintain focus in general. I think with me, naturally, I'm a person that's always all over the place. So I have to be really interested in something and passionate about something to be focused. But it didn't help. Yeah, it's still 1 o'clock. Okay, no worries. Sorry, I'm in a hotel. But so that was like the what was I talking
You
about?
were unfocused because of
Yeah, it
education.
was hard to maintain
Yeah,
focus
so
moving
so that was
around.
one of it, but the other thing is, it was always discouraging people. Um, Before, like my dad and my stepmom, like they would, instead of giving me encouraging words, I would get insults about my lack of. And what was crazy is I consider myself a very intelligent, smart kid, and I'm very good at picking up something really fast, especially if I'm interested in it. But at that time, at that age, it was different because it was hard to say inspired or focus on things that was positive when you had people constantly doubting you and telling you what you can't do, or instead of encouraging you, they throw out insults. And then they would bring my oldest sister, they would bring her in there, who was the straight A student, and she would laugh. Like it was just a complete circus to me. And that's what made it really hard, because I just didn't have any interest anymore in school or anything like that, because I just felt like it wasn't gonna matter, because nobody believed in me anyways.
Right. Were there any subjects at any time or any sports that you did get interested in?
Football and basketball, and then history is like my favorite. Like that was the crazy thing about me too. There was like a few class, or if I had a teacher, like let's say I had a really good, cool teacher, like one of those teachers that's really passionate about, she's more than just a teacher. Then those classes I would, because I'm the type of person, if you show me love, I'm a loyal person. I'm gonna show you that back. And if I'm a knucklehead and I act up in every other class, but you're that teacher that is nice and caring and believe in me and your class is fun, then I would never be disruptive in your class. I'm gonna always give you that respect. So my history teacher, my history class, I loved history like with a passion. Math is like I just be wanting to jump off a bridge sometimes. But definitely history, basketball, and football. Those
Were
things.
there any other positive influences from the adult world when you were a young person? Any other teachers or sports coaches or
Oh, let's see. I had a few. My fifth grade teacher, her name was Miss Fountain. She was from Atlanta, Georgia. She was a black lady. She was really cool, down to earth, and her class was just always fun because she was good. She had a big personality. and she didn't treat us like kids. She treated us like how she treats her kids, but she wasn't like the strict parent either. So she loved us. So that was always, I loved her class. I've always was like, if I ever get a chance to see her again, I want to thank her for just that good experience. Then I had two other teachers in high school, Miss Perez and then Miss Jaffers. And they were Miss Perez, actually, before I got locked up, she found out that that I had some kind of desire to be a lawyer. I wanted to I was like, I would love to be a lawyer. And she, before the summer, before I got locked up, spring break, she actually wanted to work with me and tutor me and like help me with other subjects because she was like, you have all this potential, but you're not applying it and you're just, throwing your life away type deal. And I kind of already knew where my route was going. So part of me didn't want to hear it, but then because of my respect and love for her, like I was like, I want to listen and I'm gonna at least try it out. But I didn't even make it to come back to school because I ended up getting incarcerated. She actually wrote me while I was in jail. So like them, but coaches, I think I had one coach. His name was Coach Baker, and he was in high school. But he was like my science teacher too, as well. So I think those three people out of all, and I was in a lot of schools.
So 10, 20 years ago in this country, they used to show like American schools with metal detectors and gang activity, and it shocked the UK public. But it's here now. We've got like prolific knife crime in this country, and it's here now. The metal detectors, young people just stabbing other young people to death. What was gang culture like at your school and the neighborhood you grew up in?
They carry guns. And like one of my middle schools, middle school, we had to go through metal detectors. A lot of people carry guns because a lot of those people were gang involved. So beefs that was on the streets could carry on to the schoolhouse too. And you would think like, oh, why would you, why can't you? But when you gang banging, it's not like you could take like a break. Okay, let me take a 2-hour break. And then when this break's over, we can go back to gang banging. It's like, no, you already kind of know that that's what comes with that when you join. So a lot of times you can have beefs that started off in the streets and sometimes they see each other at school and a fight will break out or somebody bring a gun and pull out a gun or a shootout after school, so that was like, it was anywhere it could go down, even if it was in a church or anything like that, because they looked at that like how soldiers look at the military.
Did you lose any friends to gang violence?
I did. I've lost a lot of friends, And what's crazy is I lost all my friends that got killed, died from people that look just like them. And to me that was puzzling as well too. It's like we killing each other for what?
So I spent time in Arizona and like the streets had different gangs, 49th Street this or whatever. And I remember Bloods and Crips and the blue and the red. How is it structured, the gangs out there in Texas?
Yeah, so because every state is like different. So like Dallas, they when they gang bang, they do like their neighborhood. So like they might have a gang. Like there's this gang in Oak Cliff, Dallas, that's I think they're 4-9 Kings. So you have to be actually from like that's their neighborhood gang. So like some of these gangs might not be nationwide, but they might just be in that area right there. And then you got some area like Los Angeles is like the mecca of it. So they're like super, because I live out in California, and they're like super traditional with that stuff. It's crazy. Like even if you're blood related brothers in different gangs, y'all are enemies. Like it's not that strict in Texas, like at all. But in Texas, it's normally like in Houston, you had like the typical Crips, Bloods, and then you had the Hispanic gangs, and then the way they ran it, it wasn't really like, I mean, you had your areas where you had Bloods, majority Bloods, but it wasn't really like to a point where people were, like California, if they see you with an opposite color, then that could cause you to, and you don't even have to be a gangbanger. But with us, it was kind of like in Texas, it wasn't really too strict like that, but the violence still played a big part in, you know, riding for your gang, and, you know, that loyalty, that brotherhood, or whatever we call it, uh, played a factor too. But as far as like the politics in it, it's not as strict as like California at all. You go to
What?
California, you have to watch everything. Like they take, because it's like the Mecca. A lot of gangs around the country started in California, originated in Los Angeles.
So did you have to join a gang then?
Just yeah, being around. So what started was is that at first when we all like what middle school, we weren't really gang banging. And then you hang out with a few older guys and they start gang banging. So then you're kind of like, oh man, what's that? You know what it is, but you don't really understand it fully. And then when you have a friend, and then next thing you know, you start really seeing yourself gravitate to, you know, all right, let me hang out with this group of people. And then next thing you know, you're hanging around a whole bunch of Bloods, or you're hanging around a whole bunch of Crips, to a point where, you know, it becomes a little pressure on you, because you're kind of like, all right, if I'm with them and I'm getting in all these fights and all this, I might as well get down with the game. And then also you get that protection and all that as well, and that family. You know, it's like I said, a brotherhood. It's like what we think is a family, because a lot of those people, a lot of my friends that gang banged, and you know, they didn't have a household like that. You know, they didn't have that love and support. So we would go and join a gang to get what we weren't getting at home. And and some people would think like, how does that make sense then? Like, why would you want that type of love? But when you're desperate for love,
Yeah.
anything is better than nothing. So it's like, you know, this is the closest thing I'm gonna get to a family, so I'll take that.
So which gang did you end up with?
So I was affiliated with the 5'9" Bounty Hunter Bloods.
And what is the
So it
initiation?
originated in Los Angeles, originated in South Central Los Angeles is where they started. That gang originated at, and then kind of branched off. And uh, Texas was one of the places, in Houston especially, where they have a lot of 5'9" Bounty Hunter Bloods, as far as the blood gang, and they have like Pyrus and stuff too. But yeah, that's what the gang I was affiliated with.
So what is the initiation to join the gang?
You got different initiations. Some people get jumped in, and then some people, you know, go commit a crime or crimes to show, you know, their loyalty and that they're down for the gang. So a lot of times it's that, or you can go, you know, some gangs, you know, you fight, you know, 4 or 5 people at once for, you know, a certain amount of time. And that can get you initiated as well. It's always something violent. It's not like something like go to Stater Brothers for me and spend $300 worth of groceries. And then come back. No, and then you're in. So you're doing something that's going to cause you to go to jail or die.
So when you were in that gang, then you said earlier that you lost a lot of friends. Was that during that period of your life? Was it like rivals that you know, going to war with rivals that caused those people to end up dead?
It was rivals, and then sometimes it was just bad business. Like you would do, you know, drug exchange that went bad, or some, like I had a friend that he was selling somebody a gun, and the guy wanted the gun and the money and everything else and killed him. And then I got some friends that, yeah, they died from rival gang members. Like one of my other friends, he got shot in 2008 at a party with beef from a rival gang. And what's crazy was the guy that actually killed him, who's actually doing time for that now. I used to be cool with him before that even happened. Like it surprised me. It was like, man, that was the one who ended up killing one of my closest friends. And it was just crazy because we were both affiliated with the same gang. So it was like, but me and this guy was cool. So it was a unique situation.
So did that gang that you were in have a dress code?
I mean, 9 times out of 10, you wore red. You wore a lot of red. as much. And then sometimes you would just wear all red, and they'll call it it's the term they say you flamed up. You know, when you have a whole bunch of red on it, say flamed up or flame Jane. But yeah, a lot of times you symbolize something, even if you had like a different color on, maybe, you know, you would at least have like your red bandana out your back pocket, or, you know, something to symbolize that, you know, who you are and what you represent.
That's fascinating for people here in England. Hearing you say things like "flamed up," that's fascinating because that's stuff, you know, we've never heard of. Is there any other slang that you guys used? Perhaps you take it for granted, but you know, to us, it would be.
I mean, you had like different calls, like Bloods. They have like a call, like we would, like if you were calling your friend, you'd be like "Swoop." So it's like SUWOOP, Swoop. You like that was your call. So if you heard Swoop, like you could be like, let's say like we were in a corner store or something, there was a whole bunch of Bloods, and you get into it with somebody and you say "Swoop," you're gonna hear other people "Swoop, swoop, swoop, swoop." Like you're gonna hear people respond to that. But that was that was a call of "What's popping." You know, you would say "What's popping" instead of "What's cracking." Crips would say "What's cracking." Bloods would say "What's popping." And I never got this technical with it, but you know, there was people that was so involved that they couldn't use anything that had the letter C. So like they would say, instead of saying, "Hey, can I borrow 50 cent?" They would say, "Hey, can I borrow 50 bent?" You know, like they so anything that has a C in it, they replace it with a B, or the way they spell their letters. Like Crips, like if a Crip was to spell my name is Mack. So they would have to spell it Macc, because
Wow.
CK, the end of CK means Crip killer. So that
Wow.
symbolizes, yeah. But if I was and then a Blood would spell it either Mack and put like an X where the C is, to cross out the C is form of disrespect. And they would put Makk and add a K to replace that C, because they don't want to put a C in there to acknowledge Crips, but then don't want to disrespect them either, because they might have love for, you know, Crips and stuff. So they just might put Makk. You know, like they won't put like, it's crazy. Like cigarettes, they would say "Bigarettes." Can I get a Bigarette? Like,
What kind of music do you guys listen to?
I mean, you really listen. We listen to really anything, honestly. A lot of rap music, though. Me personally, I just listen to things that I could relate. But of course, you had a couple rappers that were Bloods that you would want to listen, because a lot of times they would, you know, gang banging or make a whole song about that gang, you know, representing their gang, and you might want to listen to it. But me, I just listen to a little. I'm more of I like old school music too. A lot of R&B. I was more of an R&B guy more than I was rap. But if I listen to rap, I used to like to listen to people that had some kind of story or message, you know, that didn't just talk about a whole bunch of, like Tupac was one of my favorite, or I loved what he had to say. And then I don't know if you know who Nipsey Hussle is.
No.
Okay. But Nipsey Hussle, he was murdered like 2 years ago. But he was a guy that I listened to because I liked his message. I'm more of a like, I want you to tell me a story, you know, and I want to relate to what you're saying. So that was really the music that I listened to. But, you know, normally it was gangster rap stuff that, you know, gets you all pumped up, or something that you could relate to that you want to hear.
So if a rival gang was coming into your neighborhood, would you identify them through their dress code?
That, or you might even just know them already, or know, hey, that's one who hang with such and such over there. You know, a lot of times if they was in your area, you would know who belongs there and who doesn't. Especially if you're like a well-known figure in that area, you know, in that environment, then you're definitely gonna know a lot of times if somebody there that's not supposed to be there. And especially if they do have like a bandana on, a blue bandana or something, you might question them or say something, "Hey man, who you here to see?" or something like that. But it's not as bad as LA though. LA, like, definitely you walk in there alive and leave out in a body bag, because they're super. I mean, I don't think that we would go to those extremes, but we probably still check to see, you know, what are you doing over here? And then
So
if it leads to you being disrespectful, then I mean, there's consequences for that. But
so when there was like war breaking out, or when there was one of you guys got hit, or one of the guys got hit, did you then have to take special precautions? And was there like people were going each other's neighborhoods, like trying to pop someone off for revenge for one of your guys or one of their guys, and did it just go round and round like that?
that was mandatory regardless. It didn't even have to be, because you got an environment full of different, you got gangbangers, you got drug dealers, and then you got what we call jack boys. Jack boys are stick up kids. They like to rob and sneak up on you and all that. So you really had to you had to be on point regardless. Like, even if it wasn't a rival gang, you still had to watch your back, because it could be somebody that's not even in the gang, but it's still to bring it to you like they're in a gang. You know, they might just not feel like they need to be in the gang, but you know, they carry guns on them and they kill people and stuff too. So you might have some beef with them that might not even be gang related. So watching your back was just mandatory in general. But a lot of times, you know, yeah, it would be because if there was a war breaking out or something, you might want to walk with a little bit more precaution, or make sure that you got a gun on you. And you might not have nothing to do with what started the war or whatever. But you know, because my loyalty is with this gang, then I have to watch my back too, because they're not gonna be driving around and saying, "Oh, there you go. Oh no, he wasn't there though." They're not gonna say that. They're gonna be like, "All right, let's get him," because then we're sending a message.
Did you have any close calls?
I had a few close calls. One of them, I was in the back seat of a car. We had just like took care of some business and hurt somebody. And when we get in the car, we're driving off, because we thought that they were still over there, like, you know, unconscious. And man, we got in the car. And we was riding through this little bumpy little road. Like, it's the concrete is all messed up and kind of bumpy and stuff. So we're thinking that it's rocks hitting the trunk. So we're in the back seat. And then there was two more that actually hit, like, we're close to the back window, because our heads are up here. And then that's when we realized, I was like, oh wait, them gunshots. And they was boom, boom, boom. And then after that, he started lighting up the car and we had to take off. And there was bullet holes all in the back of the trunk. Luckily, he didn't aim. And I think because he was still woozy, that he couldn't get his aim right. I think that if he wasn't woozy, because we messed him up pretty bad, I'm pretty sure he had to at least been dazed still. If we wouldn't have messed him up that bad, he probably would have had better aim, and I probably could have got shot in the back of the head, because we were all in the back seat. Because it was like, what, 5 of us in the car, so 3 of us. I was one of the ones that was in the back seat, and our heads are right there. It could have been easily, hey, boom, right there, headshots. But I don't think he was, because the way the bullets were scattered everywhere and just aiming at the trunk, I don't believe, because we never looked back though either, because there's bullets flying. You're not trying to look back. You're trying to get out the way. But I believe that he just was dazed so much that he just was just shooting. And that's a blessing too at the same time, because that could have cost us, because we were all in the car defenseless at that time, with our backs turned, not even realizing that this guy just went in this house and got a gun.
You said you had a couple of close calls. What was the other one?
The other one I had, it was another situation where we were actually some guys. All right, so there's also a lot of Hispanic and Black beefs too that goes on in America. So we had a situation where one of my friends was fighting. So then my other friend, I guess he was bored by the fight that they were having. So he went and punched one of the other guys. And then once he went and punched them, we all went and started punching on them. Like, so we just jumped them because they was in our area anyways. We were going to let them get like the one-on-one. Then we started jumping them. And then next thing you know, we're all walking our own separate ways. And me and my friend ended up, one of them, they went to their house, came back in a truck, and they just was driving around looking for all of us. And they ended up seeing us walking down the street and was chasing us and shooting. But they were riding in the car, so we was able to cut corners and jump fences. And all that kind of stuff. So that was a close call. And then yeah, there was another one. I don't really want to talk about that one. I was a lot younger. I was a
I
lot
hear you.
younger, and that case is still unsolved. So
What was your first brush with the law?
let's see. Like the first time like I ever had an encounter with the police.
Yeah.
My first one was a bad one actually, and it was I mean, I don't think anybody expects it to be like a pleasant one, but it was just a lot of racial profiling going on out there. And the very first encounter was I was just chilling. Like I was just hanging in the apartment complex we live in. A cop pulls up. I think I'm like 12 or 13 at the time, but a cop pulled up and it's us. Like we're teenagers. We're just sitting there, just hanging out in front of my friend Kevin's townhome. We just sitting right there in the area, and they pull by, and the guy points at me. The cop points at me, telling me, "Come here." So I walk over there. He gets out the car. He tells me to put my hands on the trunk, and I'm like, "Whoa, wait, what I do?" And then after that, he was like, "Man, don't try to resist or anything like that." So I put my hands on the trunk, and he starts patting me. He says, "You see that screen in the car?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Well, we're looking for a suspect, and you fit the description." And I clearly saw the screen of the description, and I didn't fit it at all. But I don't think he knew my vision was that good because I was pretty far away. But I was looking so hard, and I'm like, "No way." I didn't even have. They said he had a black shirt. I had a white shirt on at that time, and the dude was a Hispanic male, heavy set, and I'm like 145 at this time. So I just think that he just was expecting us to have some stuff on us, just catch some free bait. And then after that, when he was searching me, I didn't have no belt on. And this one, I used to sag, so my pants were kind of falling. And I went without even knowing, I'm not even realize what I'm doing. I went to try to pull him up, and he pulled a gun out on me so fast, he had it on my back. He was like, "If I was you, I would not do that." And man, I was so scared because, we hear all the time cops, doing this and doing that, where I'm from. So I'm like, "Oh man, this man about to shoot me in my back." And that was like the first encounter. And then after that, I had this one cop. He just had it out for me so bad, and rightfully so. But at the same time, he was a black cop. So I expected him to be more, understandable to us and like, let me help y'all out. Y'all some lost kids, be more like just, instead of coming try to lock us up, we'll listen to you probably more than we'll listen to any but other cop that comes in here. Cause you're black, if anything we would be open to hearing what you have to say if we feel like that you have good intentions. Just based off your skin color, you kind of have but they don't do that. They do the complete opposite. And then we look at them as, the other cops. So then they don't have no loyalty with us at all.
So did you get arrested for more serious things over time that ended up with your incarceration?
I did. And it led, it started, and this is where it started with. It started with watching gangster movies, being infatuated with guns and that, I mean, especially when you're already in that environment and you're watching all these movies and stuff. And so then when we go to the dollar store, everybody else getting a toy or getting a wand, a magic wand, some bubbles that blow with a fan or something. And Mack wants a Desert Eagle. And then take the orange tip off so it looked real and I'm walking around packing it. And then my dad, one time he had like a real gun, but it was like something was wrong, the pin or something was off, but it was real. And somehow I got it and I kept it. And it wasn't loaded, it didn't work or anything, but I always carried it with me. And I was like in the 4th or 5th grade at that time. I was just like, and I think after that, it went from that, then I started smoking weed and then, but a lot of that started with the household. That was the biggest thing. If I had just my dad in my life and him actually being there for me, I don't think that I would have even committed any of those crimes. I was doing all that stuff for acceptance, love, and approval, and all the things that I wasn't getting at home. You're as a parent, you ask your child for these things. respect and, take care of your education, make some out of your life, chores and all this type of stuff. Well, I wasn't getting that. So their expectations were completely different. So they were like, in order to get this, you have to do this, this, and that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that then. So, I mean, in all actuality, if the household was a lot better, I wouldn't even had committed any of those crimes or did any of those things. And I think that's what really led up. I had no hope and I was lost and I wanted love and all those things that, I believe every kid, even as adults, we still want that. We still seek love and attention and acceptance.
For people in the UK, how old are you in 4th and 5th grade?
In 4th and 5th grade, how old was I?
Yeah.
I believe I was with 9 and 10, or no,
Wow.
10 and 11.
That really puts it in perspective. So you can access guns then at such a young age. I mean, how easy is it to get guns?
Oh, in Texas, it's
Yeah.
so easy, especially in Texas. Like in Texas right now, you can carry a gun without having a license now. Like they just passed that law. But it's so easy to get guns, especially in my environment. Like the only thing is that, so you got a lot of, so that's, again, you got like so many different hustles. So you have some people that also break into places and steal guns and stuff like that too, and sell them on the street. And then you might have somebody that might have killed somebody with that gun, and then they need to get rid of it, so they sell it off. And then now you have that gun, and you did probably committed 5 robberies, so now you get rid of that gun and sell it to somebody. And then that person who gets caught with just possession of a firearm, now he has to worry about 3 different robberies that he didn't commit, a murder that he didn't commit, but he has the gun in the ATF. Like, you have that gun, it's in your possession, and your fingerprints is all on the gun. So this is the same gun that these robberies, and then you're in that. So a lot of times that's just how it goes. Those guns get passed around so much that a lot of those guns have bodies on there. Like the gun that we got caught, we had the ATF involved in our case, because they said too, like the gun that we had was some other like murders or something like that, and that was a gun that we got from somebody. Like
Wow.
we didn't kill anybody or shoot anybody with that gun, and that gun had all kind of illegal stuff on there. And the serial number, they scratched the serial numbers off so they can't be traced. So a lot of times that's how guns get.
Just to put the prices in perspective then, I've interviewed people in the UK who had guns in their former criminal histories, and the prices they were telling me, there's like a zero on the prices in America, because in Arizona, Saturday night special for like $100, $200. What kind of prices were you guys getting guns for?
Yeah, so like in Texas, like if you go to like an actual store, you buy like a 45, probably like you probably spend like a minimum like $700 to probably like $800. I think probably you have to pay. It's a lot of money, but on the street you can buy one for like $250, $300. Easy. So that's a big gap right there, because a lot of those people just, because when they get rid of it, they can just go get another. It's so easy to get a gun out there, and they'll sell it for cheap because, it's just money in their pocket. And they rather get rid of that gun anyways, because they done committed so many crimes on there. All right, it's time to give me a new one.
What was the name of the county jail out there, and what was your first experience of it?
My first experience in jail, it was different because you're in there with a bunch of young kids, a bunch of young knuckleheads, and when they put me on the floor, so they had like 8 floors, and the 8th floor, the top floor, is what they call the gladiator floor. That's where like all the big dogs and all the violent people and people that like to fight all the time. That was the floor that they had put me on. And but they put me on that floor because of my size. Everybody up there was big dudes, big teenagers. And so that was like the experience that I dealt with at first, just how they segregated people and how they placed people in different positions. And then also just the food was horrible, just being locked up, and like you had a window at the top of the roof. So you only looking at clouds and the sun if it's set right there. And that's about it. You can't really see anything else. So I hate it. I never had a problem like being in there with inmates and stuff. I can defend myself, and I'm smart enough to not have to have somebody manipulate me into doing anything. It's the fact of having your freedom taken away from you, having to be isolated, and somebody telling you what to do, when to shower. You really have just no freedom at all. That was the part that sucked the most for me. Like that was the part I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Did they ever serve you green bologna sandwiches?
Green?
That green bologna sandwich stuff.
Oh,
That's what they serve in Arizona.
no, but they served some nasty food or something that looked like meatloaf. I think that's what it was. Some other stuff, man. It was bad. It was bad. And the Kool-Aid was, oh man, it was just flavored water. That's all it was. It was they put no sugar at all in there. Then you had
One of my female co-defendants, she dyed her hair with the Kool-Aid, all these colors.
oh but yeah, the food was horrible. And in jail, you just create the dumbest things in jail just to do. Like if the food was nasty, you would just make a spread and just put everything together. You might got some bread and mix it all together. It might take the taste away. You might get a little variety of taste. Or we used to have this tea that they would give us for dinner, and it was like, well, it was nasty too. But we had these brownies, big brownies, that we would get at dinner time, and you would put the whole brownie in there, crush it, and you would basically be scooping it like you're like the weirdest thing, but it was bomb though. It was so good. When I first got in, I seen people do. I said, "Are you dipping a brownie in some tea?" And don't knock it till you try it. Next thing you know, I was in there windmill dunking brownies in there. Hey man, you gonna eat that brownie and dump it in my tea? And then the best part was when the crumbs, whatever was left in there, the crumbs at the bottom, when you drink it, it's kind of like what's at the end of the French fries. Like, yeah, that part. But
what was the name of that jail?
No, that was I was in downtown. I was in West Side. They called one of them West Side. And then I was in Waco, which was Marlin. And then after that, Gainesville.
Do you guys have some sheriff who thinks he's a badass?
All the guards in there thought that they were that. I mean, because and to be honest, I felt like a lot of those people that did that were the people that used to get wedgies in high school. So then now they have because I just don't see. I can't see how a grown-up could have that type of a power trip. And it wasn't even nothing. It was just, hey, is it cool if I get my mail real quick? Because this is when we're supposed to get our mail. All right.
Yeah.
Well, since you asked, it's going to be an hour from now. Because I asked for my mail that I was like, what? And I was like, and that's just an ego that they have. Oh, well, if you don't like it, do something about it.
Okay. Yeah, they go crazy, don't they? The ego just takes over. Like they become RoboCops.
It's bad, but I mean, that's why I tell you, you give anybody, a lot of people can't handle power. Like everybody wants to be in position to have power, but not everybody can handle it. But it's crazy because a lot of people can access it. Just like those people, they have a sense of power. Like they used to insult us. They used to say the just craziest things because they know what they could get away with. And then you had some inmates that didn't care about that and was like, all right, y'all about to get beat up. Like jump on the guards. Like I knew a couple guys and some of us, we would be kind of satisfied, like at least somebody did it, because it was just crazy how they would treat us. And I understand like they look at us as criminals and stuff too. But at the same time, we're still kids, man. Like we're still teenagers. We might be completely different 10 years from now. Because when I was 5, I wanted to be a firefighter. Then when I was 9, I wanted to be a Power Ranger. And then I was, 13, I wanted to play basketball, be in the NBA. And when I was 16, I wanted to be a lawyer. I mean, and then I'm 20, I wanted to be an actor. So we just constantly just change. But I mean, they never looked at It was no empathy. All the things that they taught us, they didn't exercise to us. And it was crazy. It was like, all right, you just have a program that you want us to say to get approved so you can build this facility where these youth are going to come in and you can make all this money off all these kids getting locked up. Because this
Matt,
program,
I'm going to play mom for a second, but didn't you say you had to be somewhere? I don't want you to be late.
it's 12, 14. Wow. Oh,
Are
yeah.
you good? Are you good? Do you have to go?
I actually have to go.
You two can collaborate at a later date.
Yeah, that was absolutely brilliant, Matt. You're such a powerful speaker.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll get this up there. Could you say the name of that gang that you were in again? I'll probably put that in the title.
The 5'9" Bounty Hunter Bloods.
5'9" Bounty Hunter Bloods. Let me write this down. That was fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time out to do that.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And are you like, do you have any socials or anything you want us to plug?
Tell them your social media handles.
So the only social media that I really use is Instagram. So it's Mack M White 3. So it's Mack and then like just the letter M and then White, my last name, and then the number 3. But it's all together in one because I'm Mack McKinley White III. So that's my Instagram. And then my Facebook is just Mack White, I believe.
All right. So just quickly to the people watching this then, if you've enjoyed Mack's story, please let us know in the comments below this video. And, please support what he's doing. He's turned his life around. We've not got to that part of the story yet, but the link is going to be in the description box below the video if you want to check out where he is on the socials. And if you've got any questions for him, put those in the comments. I'd love to get him back on, do a part 2, whereby we go over the day of his big arrest and what it was like in the prison. And I'm very curious as well, like in Arizona, the street gangs, it's all put to one side. You have to be just in a racial gang in prison and how all that works in Texas. So appreciate you doing that, Mack. Don't want to hold you much longer then.
Thank
Cheers.
you, Mack. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then everybody else, hold on, because Shaun and I are going to keep on rolling.
Yep.
Bye, Mack.
Bye.
Yay. And so for everybody that we just kind of threw Mack in there at the last minute. Thank you, Shaun, for doing that, because
it's fascinating. He's such a powerful, commanding presence, doesn't he, on camera?
Yeah, and so that's how he ended up being an actor. My daughter had been acting for years, and he saw what she was doing, and so he started going to her acting school. And then later on, after my divorce, when I couldn't afford to keep him in there anymore, my friend who owns it, Catherine Sullivan, she scholarshiped him because she was so impressed with him. And he's been a leading guy in a nationally released movie, and he's down in Houston speaking because they're premiering a movie that's going to come out nationally sometime, I think, in the fall. So he's got a lot to share. His story is really incredible, and he's worked very hard. Because he finally came to me as an adult and said, I want to keep working. I want to become a better man. And he's got a daughter, and it's just awesome. So now on to you. The whole reason I wanted you here was because I just absolutely love your story because of my connection with Mack and Mack's friends. I worked with 12 or 14 of his friends directly, trying to help them get jobs and getting them mainstreamed into society. And so I've absolutely loved your channel. And so for anyone that doesn't understand what you do, you basically have all these incredible true crime stories. However, I was reading on your About, and you were talking about your true mission is to end the war on drugs and to protect children by incarcerating predators. And I was up all night listening to your previous books. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that in 1937, they changed a lot of the drug laws. And because of that, the jails are now full with people who I and you both think shouldn't be there in a lot of cases. And it changed from being a place where actual predators and rapists and murderers were to now people who sometimes were even set up by the CIA. So if you could share a little bit about that, and then go into your new book that you've just released and chat about that.
Yeah, so you're talking about a guy called Harry Anslinger who introduced drug laws to the entire world. He was put in charge. He was like one of the first drug czars. He was in charge for decades. And he said the main reason to make drugs illegal was their effect on the degenerate races, and that on drugs, black people would feel as important as white people. And he went after people like Billie Holiday and
Rick Ross.
yeah, the blues singers. And but if you were a white person back then, who was in entertainment, and you had a drug problem, you were treated completely differently by Harry. Harry assigned a man to go to basically hound Billie Holiday, and this, because she was so charming, this guy fell in love with her, this undercover cop. But they did successfully hound her to death, even on her deathbed in the hospital. They were in there, and I believe it contributed to her premature death. And my friend Johan Harry, he wrote a book about this called Chasing the Scream, and the movie's out now showing the racist history of drug wars. So that went on for decades, but then you had the mass incarceration, for-profits, private prisons, etc., which was introduced, ramped up by Bush and Clinton crime families. So George H.W. Bush, Reagan administration, and then Bill Clinton locked up a record amount of low-level drug users, a record amount of women inmates, to the point where 1 in 100 adults in America right now is incarcerated. And I'm a member of LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. These are cops, judges, prosecutors who see the insanity of the war on drugs. And they say things like, the purpose of prisons was to house person A who harms person B. Predators, rapists, robbers, murderers. If you mass incarcerate low-level drug users, and at the peak of the war on drugs, the highest arrest category was weed possession. Weed possession, almost 1 million a year. If you arrest a young person with weed, who's that person harming?
Exactly.
So the whole purpose of the police and the prisons has been subverted by the financial motivation of predatory corporations and lobbyists paying off the government, everything from private prisons to prison guard unions, and there's hundreds of other parasitic entities, paying off the government to keep drug laws tight, to keep these prisons full of the lowest hanging fruit. And the lowest hanging fruit, from my own experience, because I know some people say this is ridiculous, what he's saying, prisons are full of serial killers and murderers. Yeah, because that's all you see on TV.
Right.
But I was in there. The
Yeah.
average arrest in Arizona was a black kid or a Mexican kid with a bit of weed getting like a 2 to 5 year sentence. This was back in 2002 to 2004 when I was in the county jail. The lowest hanging fruit is young people with drugs, not the dealers, they're harder to catch, possession. It is the mentally ill. It is the homeless. And it is soldiers. More than half of my friends incarcerated were soldiers. Come back from wars with PTSD, didn't get any help from the government, got on street drugs, and ended up in prison. So I learned that society rounded up its most vulnerable people,
Yes.
converted them into commodities, put them in these big warehouses,
Yes.
and just profited off the back of it. $60,000 a year of taxpayers' money per prisoner. So a young person comes in busted for weed, and what do? Do they get reformed and live happily ever after? No, they get neo-Nazi tattoos if they are white, because they joined the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang, because that's who decides who lives and dies. They move on to heroin. 90% were injecting heroin. If you didn't have a heroin habit when you came in, you sure as hell left with one. And then you've got a criminal record, so you're ruined for life. And when you got to that gate, when it was your release day, guess what? They gave you $50 and said, have a nice day.
And guess what they went and did? Yeah.
Yeah, and how long does it take for that person to come right back? And as soon as they come right back, $60,000 back to the jail, back to the prison. It's a client for life, because they're breaking people, they're destroying people, they're not rehabilitating people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's something I would love for you to talk to Mack about too when you guys have your second interview, because he witnessed that, And then he also was saying that so many of the stories, even the kids that were there for horrible things, were absolutely traumatized. And he's like, when I heard their stories, when they would all talk in groups, he goes, they were absolutely just abused. It was horrifying. But I loved your book, and I mean, even the appendixes. Like you've got one on George W. Bush protecting the pedophiles. It's a 30. It is absolutely, if anybody gets a chance on Audible, the previous book was just amazing. I barely could sleep. I was like, I wanted to get more. I wanted to learn more. It was amazing. And then when the appendix is like, I think it's 12 hours. The average book is what, 5 to 7. It's so amazing. Do you have a copy of it to show everyone?
Well, let's see. I've got a copy of my new one here,
okay, let's talk about it.
which is Who Killed Epstein, Prince Andrew or Bill Clinton. I'll just read from the back of it. Virginia alleged that Epstein ordered her to have sex with Prince Andrew 3 times, including in an orgy on the pedophile island, which included underage European girls. On the Lolita Express, Bill Clinton was photographed with Epstein's, quote, sex slaves. After Epstein was suicided, both men denied any knowledge of his crimes, as well as committing abhorrent acts of pedophilia for decades. Epstein had been managing a child sex blackmail operation that had ensnared some of the world's most powerful people, ranging from royalty to ex-presidents. Survivors have claimed that Epstein filmed some of his guests raping minors. Whoever ordered the hit on the super predator had a lot to lose. This book examines the roles of Epstein and his accomplices in the honey trap operation and the likelihood of a royal prince or an ex-president being co-conspirators in his assassination.
Amazing.
Thanks.
So can you give us a couple of highlights from it? A few teasers?
So it's got an updated account, a listing of the Clinton body count. And unfortunately, another person has been added to that body count, which I wasn't able to publish because it's only just happened. The speculation now about the death of Christopher Sine, who broke the story about Clinton's controversial secret tarmac meeting.
Oh yeah, that was the reporter, right?
Yeah. The meeting was with Attorney General Loretta Lynch in 2016, while Hillary was being investigated for using a private email server. Sine just recently passed away, and the authorities are investigating the 45-year-old's death as a suicide. So Trump and Representative Lauren Boebert have already started casting the tragedy as a Clinton body count conspiracy, according to the news. And on Instagram, Trump asked if his followers had, quote, ever seen so many suicide coincidences. Boebert made a similar suggestion on Twitter. Why is it that so many who cross the Clinton crime syndicate end up dead? She captioned the clip of Sine on Fox and Friends a couple of years ago, talking about death threats he received after reporting on the Clinton Lynch meeting. And I've seen some of his own stuff where he's on camera just talking about the death threats, and ever since reporting about the Clintons. So other Republican-leaning accounts made the same implication that the Clintons were somehow involved. Quote, just the reporter who broke the Bill Clinton-Loretta Lynch secret tarmac meeting. Nothing to see here. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. That's from John Corradillo. So yeah, there's another one from
absolutely. You have to laugh at it because it is so devastating. I cannot believe that is somebody's child. That is probably somebody's, dad. That is this incredible man who had a life and played football and did all kinds of incredible things. And then this happens. What is the body count up to?
Oh my goodness. It's so many now. I've lost count. Let me, I'll go over it.
Give me an estimate.
Cut me off if this gets too long. So I've got James McDougal as the first one, who was Clinton's convicted Whitewater partner, key witness in Ken Starr's investigation, who supposedly had a heart attack while in solitary confinement. Number 2, Mary Mahoney, former White House intern, murdered July 1997 at a Starbucks in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. This murder happened after she had decided to go public with a story of sexual harassment in the White House. Number 3, Vince Foster. A whole book could be written on Vince Foster, but I'll just urge people to go online and research his story. It is mind-blowing. Former White House counselor and colleague of Hillary Clinton's Little Rock Rose law firm, died of a gunshot wound to the head. Although ruled a suicide, the body was obviously moved and the evidence doctored.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he knew a lot about the dirty deeds done at Hillary's law firm. Number 4, Ron Brown, former Secretary of Commerce and DNC chairman. Reportedly, he died from the impact in a plane crash, but a pathologist close to the investigation stated there was a hole in the top of his skull resembling a gunshot wound. At the time of his death, Brown was being investigated and spoken publicly of his willingness to cut a deal with the prosecutors. The remainder of the people on the plane died, and a few days later, the air traffic controller committed suicide, and on it went. Number 5, C. Victor Reiser II, a major player in the Clinton fundraising machine, died in a private plane crash in July 92. Number 6, Paul Tully, DNC political director, found dead in a hotel room in Little Rock, September 1992. Described by Clinton as a dear friend and trusted advisor. Number 7, Ed Wiley, Clinton fundraiser, dead in 93 of a gunshot wound to the head, deep in the woods in Virginia, ruled a suicide. He died on the same day his wife, Kathleen Willey, claimed Bill Clinton had groped her in the Oval Office of the White House. Wiley was involved in several Clinton fundraising events. Number 8, Jerry Parks, former head of Clinton's gubernatorial security team in Little Rock, was gunned down in his car at a deserted intersection outside of Little Rock's Park. His son said that his father was building a dossier on Bill and that he had allegedly threatened to reveal this information. After he died, those files were mysteriously removed from his house. Number 9, James Bunch supposedly died from a gunshot suicide. It was reported that he had a little black book of people, including elites who visited sex workers in Texas and Arkansas. Parallels there with the Epstein theme of blackmail, suicide, and little black books. Number 10, James Wilson, found dead in May 93 from apparent hanging suicide. He was tied to Whitewater. Number 11, Kathy Ferguson, ex-wife of Arkansas trooper Danny Ferguson, found dead in May 94 in a living room with a gunshot to the head. Ruled a suicide even though there were several packed suitcases, as if she were planning to flee. Danny Ferguson was a co-defendant with Bill Clinton in the Paula Jones lawsuit. Kathy Ferguson was a possible corroborating witness with Paula Jones. Bill Shelton, Arkansas state trooper and fiance of Kathy Ferguson, critical of the suicide ruling of his fiancée, was found dead in June 94 with a gunshot wound, which was ruled, of course, a suicide. Gandhi Bao, attorney for Bill Clinton's friend Dan Lasseter. People should research Dan Lasseter. There's a hell of a story there. Gandhi Bao died by jumping out of a window of a tall building in January 94. One of the biggest contributors to the Clinton campaigns, Lasseter was laundering money for the CIA-backed Arkansas cocaine operation. Barry Seal, the pilot who was killed, was dropping off money directly to Lasseter. As a money manager, he sold bonds, which were an integral part of the money laundering operation. Lasseter had easy access to Clinton through the back door of the state capitol building. Number 14, Florence Martin, former accountant and subcontractor for CIA activity related to Barry Seal's Arkansas drug smuggling, died of 3 gunshot wounds. 15, Susan Coleman, who reportedly had an affair with Clinton when he was the Arkansas Attorney General. Pregnant at the time of her death, she died of a gunshot wound to the back of the head, which was ruled a suicide. Paula Grover, number 16, Clinton's speech interpreter for the deaf from 78 until her death in December 92, died in a one-car accident. Danny Casolaro, investigative reporter investigating Mena Airport and the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, who supposedly slit his wrists
I was
in the
just gonna
middle
say,
of the
let me guess,
investigation.
suicide?
He was found dead in a bathtub in room 517 of the Sheraton Hotel in Martinsburg, West Virginia. Wrists slashed 10 to 12 times.
Oh,
Arkansas Development Finance Authority was supposedly set up to bring jobs to Arkansas and boost the economy, but it was a money laundering scheme for cocaine proceeds. The amount of cash in the banks in Arkansas surged due to all of the money laundering. Now that's just I'm just getting started on this. Do you want me to keep going, or have you got?
No, that's good. I mean,
Okay.
that's just insane. And so, what do you think? 80% of them are deemed suicides?
You know what? We've got to say that Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton have never been investigated for murder, and there's a lot of people losing their channels right now on YouTube. We've got 47 people in the list in the book. If people want to read the details of the rest of them,
book. Wow.
but I will be very careful. A lot of people are losing YouTube channels right now, so these are just theories and allegations, and it's up to the public to make their own interpretation of them. Bill and Hillary Clinton have never been indicted, charged, investigated for murders, as far as I'm aware.
Right. Oh my gosh. And so when you did your next book, the Who Killed Epstein, one of the things that struck me when I was reading the previous book is how intertwined everything. It all comes around to like these 7 like major mountains, right? Finance and drugs and government and things. Do you ever get harassed for having the Clinton body count hashtag on your account?
So for having the Clinton hashtag body count on my books has been fine. Having it on my YouTube, we've just had to put a third of the channel under review.
Okay.
So we've basically had to delete videos with 50 million views in the last week.
Oh, wow.
Because YouTube has introduced tighter community guidelines pertaining to a lot of the subject matter that has crossover with what we're doing on the channel. So we've had to take these videos down. We're putting them under review, and we're going to re-upload stuff that we think is not going to cause us problems with YouTube. It's a precautionary measure.
No, it's smart. You have a huge, anyone that doesn't know about Shaun, he's got over 670,000 people on there. It's incredible what you've built. You've worked really hard and you've done great work. It's incredible.
Thanks.
I really loved the one that you did with Maya about a month ago. And I did reach out to her, and she has agreed to come and chat with me and, just get the word out. It's unbelievable what she endured to her pedophile, evil dad. And so how do you keep happy in a world that talks about so much trauma and tragedy, horrendous things?
I feel blessed that people are so interested in the stories we post on the channel. I feel blessed that despite the death threats and everything from black ops to trolls trying to destroy our work, that overwhelmingly every day the responses coming in are just full of love and support.
Mm-hmm.
And being on a mission, it just fires you up. At the beginning of this interview, you said our YouTube channel's mission statement. It's right on there on the About page. And it says, we want to end the war on drugs. America spent $2 trillion right now, and the situation is worse than ever with fentanyl and the deaths and the young people getting mass incarcerated for private prisons. $2 trillion for what? It's just been an absolute shakedown on the taxpayers. Imagine if they took all that money and used it to investigate and incarcerate and not give sweetheart deals to predators like Epstein, all of the victims that would have been prevented from these heinous crimes. So the justice system is completely upside down. We see paedophile priests bringing high-priced lawyers in and getting slaps on the wrist or doing no time at all and just getting moved 20, 30 miles away to commit more crimes. If people don't think that's true, watch The Sins of My Father, the documentary about that priest, hundreds of victims, some of them like babies. And this guy got hardly any time whatsoever. And yet I visited the Hemp Museum in Holland, and on the wall there, they've got pictures of people who under 3 strikes laws are doing life sentences for marijuana possession. The whole justice system is upside down, and it's time for the people to express that they are sick of it. And these cowardly politicians who think they've got to be tough on drugs to get votes and are mass incarcerating the young people, the future generations, these people need to be voted out of office because it's absolutely sickening. And if they're not going to protect kids and go after the predators, that should be the absolute priority. So next time these stuffed shirts are giving speeches, and if you're there listening to some politician's speech, ask them on your mission statement, how high is protecting kids by incarcerating predators, investigating predators, and allocating our tax resources to that. Ask them, how high is that in your mission? And they probably won't even have it anywhere near the top. It's sickening.
I love your fire for it too. And then it's the way I've felt from the beginning once I started understanding it. And then I also was so appalled with, you can talk to Mack about it, but, it's his story, but he has talked about, how the guards would do such inappropriate things with these, youth. There was a number of things, a whole spectrum of things that were, as you know, jail is not what it should be. And that would be another thing that, to me, absolutely needs to be cleaned up completely. It really should be what it's intended to be, and that is a place to find love and to find their spirit again and to let them get the tools that would help them naturally unfold with their God-given DNA, with their beautiful intelligence that they have that was put within them. And they never even had a chance. People always say, oh, you gave Mack a second chance. And I'm like, no, I gave Mack his first chance. That was the first chance that Mack had. And so I love your passion about it. And I do believe that people underestimate reaching out to what you call the stuffed shirts. I love that. And letting them know that you don't like the system at all and all of the things that you can get educated on. It would be really cool to combine forces over the ocean, and whatever LEAP is or whatever it is that you're working on, to have a sister program here trying to get people educated, or I don't know how far into it you are, but
LEAP started out of America.
Oh, it did.
So
okay.
the branch in the UK is Leap UK, and we've had a lot of our Leap ex-cops on the True Crime podcast. And what I've learned is there's so many good people working in the system.
Yes.
And they say we joined to go after the predators, and we were assigned to infiltrate student groups and get them smoking pot so we could arrest them all to make our arrest quotas. How pathetic is that? Ruining kids' lives.
Yeah, and that was one of Mack's friends. He had a pretty good mom, but she just had so many children, and she was working all the time and always gone. But she had told him a million times, please don't get in the system. Please don't get in the system, because once you're in the system, it's nearly impossible to get out, because they put all of these conditions upon you, or they let you out under parole. But under parole, you can't even get, an inspection sticker on your car to not be. What people don't realize is how truly evil the system has become. And the education and allowing for people to be educated on it so they understand it, so that they can call the stuffed shirts and tell them, hey, we're done with this. We are destroying children and young people.
You've got your school to prison pipeline, and then once you're in the system, you're ensnared. So when you get out, the restrictions are so tight, and your criminal record prohibits you from getting a job, or it's very hard to get a job. Mm-hmm. So you're set up for failure. And as soon as you come back, bang, $60,000 more for the prison. And that's just one of the
And some of
contractors.
them are more. Some of them are up to $100,000.
Supermax prisons, etc. Yeah, you're looking at, low six figures
And
per
it's
prisoner.
just so expensive. And I look at, my friend Carla, who I had on yesterday, who started a safe house, and she was raising money to create the Freedom Center, which is where, some of these women that come out of sex trafficking, she wanted to have a place for them to go, which I'm happy to announce, based on what she and I talked about yesterday, she had somebody call in that is going to donate the 200,000 that somebody else is going to match. So she's going to be able to open this. But this is what it's going to take, is all of us who are tired of it, who believe it is wrong, doing any little part. It can be as simple as making phone calls and being a digital warrior, getting things out. LEAP started in the US. How did you find out about it?
So I was Googling videos about the war on drugs because my series of books with these black and white and red covers is a war on drugs series of books. So I was watching all the testimonies from these LEAP cops on YouTube. And there's a guy called Peter Christ, and his stuff was just so powerful. It really resonated with me. And then I started interviewing some of the LEAP cops on my true crime podcast. But it was that research in the war on drugs that totally opened my eyes to the Clinton crime family and led me to Epstein, because one of the earlier books is American Made, about the CIA cocaine smuggling pilot Barry Seal. His dream was to open Southern Air Transport over Mexico. Southern Air Transport, if people don't know, was a CIA front company. It was drugs in and weapons out. And many researchers now accept that this was being done by the CIA to finance the war in Nicaragua under George H.W.
Right.
Bush and Oliver North. George Bush was fighting this war on drugs while importing cocaine. And Barry Seal was well, people could see that this has happened.
Yeah.
And Barry Seal was assassinated. On his body was George H.W. Bush's phone number. And his dream to open Southern Air Transport over Mexico ended with his assassination. But guess what? Southern Air Transport ended up in, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. And who moved Southern Air Transport to Ohio? Do you know?
Epstein, Wexner.
Yeah, Epstein and Wexner.
Yeah, and I really didn't know that. That was just a logical guess based on Ohio.
It's the octopus of global control, as Charlie Robertson calls it. That's the title of his book. It's all linked together.
Right.
The drugs, the trafficking, like you just pointed out about the sex trafficking. It's all just this one dark entity.
Yes.
With tentacles all over the world.
Right. And thank you for all that you do to expose it and to fight for this. And to be honest, I think that anytime you resist something so hard, there's something there. Like, from being in the charity world, I have realized that a lot of times the people who are standing up and on the front lines are sometimes the ones that are doing the exact opposite of what they're supposedly standing up and doing. And that gets confusing for people. So for example, I have this woman, Jessie, who used to be in the satanic cults, and she comes on all the time. And so people accuse her of still being in it, and then they accuse her of not doing enough. And then when she does something, they say, "Oh, you did something to me." Like you literally can't win. Do you run into that with your stuff? People accusing you of still being involved, or?
Here's the thing. As my audience has grown, more crazy people and dangerous people have come out of the woodwork. I'll give you one example. In the last week, I woke up and I had all these messages on my phone that the police had been called to my podcast studio because of death threats upon myself, the owner of the studio, and the people working at the studio. Police had been called overnight. And it was until the point I started reporting on Epstein, nothing like this had happened. As soon as I started reporting the Epstein case and mentioning all these big names and really, trying to get the forefront of what was going on, everything from what we believe is black ops run by intelligence agencies, at the top of it, campaigns that they're financing or behind, to the trolls at the bottom of that, and then all kinds of people in the middle of it. And I just find it bizarre that, when you're doing videos, that the motivation is to protect children.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many forces in the world that want to shut you down.
Mm-hmm.
So these people who are trying to stop our work have got to ask themselves, are you working for the pedophiles? Because you're doing their job for them by
Right.
trying to stop us, by trying to shut this stuff down. If you're not working for the pedophiles, then you need to ask yourself, what the hell are you doing? Do you not want kids to be protected? Do you not want super predators to be exposed? But it's a crazy world, isn't it? And the closer you get to the truth, the more you are targeted.
Yeah, yeah. So it is interesting because a lot of people that, you go out there, and this is where, my daughter said something that I've repeated over and over again. She's like, Mom, the information age is over. We can't trust the information we're getting. But this is why I believe the spiritual side of a man is so important, because you have to be able to trust your gut, trust your heart, trust your own common sense, put the dots together, because some of them are so flippin' obvious. Just like I knew when you said Ohio, I knew who it had to be. Like that doesn't take a lot of research. That just takes a little bit of awareness and being up to date on what's going on around us, and being willing to listen to the other side. People criticize me sometimes for talking to certain people, or what are you doing? That person's a bad person, or whatever. But I believe that God can redeem anyone, and I believe that it's not my job, but I also want to hear what they're going through. And that's one of the reasons I absolutely love what you share, because so many times you've got this guy and he's tatted up and he's been to the worst of the worst. But when you hear his story, you understand how he got there. And I look at even you and Mack. I mean, both of you are speakers. Both of you are out there now doing beautiful things. You've alchemized what it is. But both of you were massively bullied as children, and for different reasons, and that is one of the things that I find people don't understand enough. And this is where I started Light Club, because I want to teach parents how not to make their children vulnerable to that, because it's my belief that there is a vulnerability that comes from the parents not understanding how the world works, how the spiritual world works. There are absolute laws in place. So thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you for coming on my little channel.
Oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity again, Carmen. And I hope Michael's doing okay.
Yeah, so far I think everything's going good. He might be down for a little bit again. It seems like he ramps up and then they slap him down again. But he's a warrior, so he's just going to keep on rolling.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I salute the work of both of you. So look forward to doing stuff.
I'm going to check into Leap, and then I do have the information you gave Michael from the last time you were on with him. Is there anything you'd like to add to that for the description box, or want to share with everybody before you roll out?
Yeah, just really appreciate people, going over to my channel and the subscribing, and it enables us to get more guests and attract the right people. And like you said before, you get criticized for interviewing certain people, but we don't always learn the most if we're just listening to people who are on the same hymn sheet. I try and get an eclectic range of guests on my channel, and I've learned a lot from people that I don't necessarily agree with.
Right.
So and then because I have someone on my channel that I don't agree with, then I get branded to have the same belief system as that person. Like, why have you got this person on your channel? This person's blah blah blah. But you just gotta tune all that out, I think, and do what your heart is steering you in the right direction. Just go with what your heart tells you to do.
Yeah.
And somehow it's come together for me. But it's thanks to the viewers and the subscribers and all the great guests that they've suggested.
Yeah, that's the thing that's so cool, is it really is a community. And I believe that my friend Carla raising that 200,000 yesterday off of just our little thing came from the spirit of everyone that was there. We were all praying for it. It's just incredible. And then the way we can connect with each other, even, you know, people have channels, like you feel a brotherhood with them. And I thank you for being here, because I know that, you know, you get to choose where you go at this point. And so I'm very honored to have you, and I hopefully will have you back. And then hopefully you and Mack will keep rolling, because his story is very cool.
Definitely. It's always a great pleasure, Carmen. So you have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Shaun.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.